approved today.
Kimberly, go ahead. This is Kelvin.
Okay, I can hear you now for the first time. I just wondering.
We're having a problem with video right now that we're trying to.
Okay, I can hear the audio now well.
Can you see my screen when I share it there?
Yes, I see that, Matt.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we need the other video or?
We're just going to try one more thing, and if that's, we'll start with the one video.
And it'll take us a couple more minutes to get it squared away.
Okay. So if he does, yeah.
Good evening. Welcome to the September 29 Planning Commission meeting. We are having just a little bit of video difficulty, but we're going to go ahead and start the meeting. And some of the participants will not be able to see them on video. So get it going here. The special meeting, Whatcom County Planning Commission, September 29, 2022 is called to order. And so I will call the roll. Answer if you are here. Robert Bartell. Here. Kelvin Barton, that's me. I'm here. Atul Deshmani.
Here.
Jim Hansen. Jim Hansen. Stephen Jackson.
Here.
Julie Jefferson.
Here.
Kimberly Lund.
Here.
Dominic Masseri.
Here.
And Scott Van Dalen.
Here.
Please join me in the flag salute. Okay, and we're going to use the one in the corner here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now it is time for our department update. Steve, our assistant planning director, will give the department update.
Sure. So the watershed amendments that you passed a few meetings ago, that went to council and they have adopted that. Just give you an update on where that is. Our next couple of meetings, the next meeting, we're going to talk about buildable lands and the public participation plan for the planning commission. And then the following, assuming that moves out, we'll be talking about open space applications. So those are your next meetings.
Right, thank you. So now it is time for open session for public comment, and we're having a hearing this evening. So this would be for comments that do not involve the hearing topic for the evening. Are you able to? We're going to have to hold for a little bit. So let's just rearrange our order a little bit. Tammy usually runs that. So we'll move on from, and we'll get back to open session for public comment pretty quick. We will move to commissioner comments. Commissioner comments. Okay. I have, for full disclosure, I had a conversation with Danielle with the Birch Bay Chamber of Commerce, and then also full disclosure, my wife and I have a business that is members of the Birch Bay Chamber of Commerce. And then let's move on to approval of minutes for the September 8th, 2022 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 8th, 2022 Planning Commission.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's hold on just a moment because Tammy's talking to me on the screen here. All right, I'm sorry, I'll get back to that. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the September 8th meeting, and hearing no corrections or comments. Yes, would you call the roll, please?
Jackson,
Abstain.
Jefferson, Jefferson, Lund,
Yes.
Lossari,
Yes.
Van Dalen,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Bartel,
Yes.
Deshmani,
Yes.
Jefferson,
Sorry, technical difficulties. Abstain, please.
passes. 6-2 and 1 S.
All right, and our former planning commissioner coordinator is here sharing with Tammy, who is our current planning commission coordinator, and that was Becky that did the roll call. And so I am not getting, we're not able to get video online.
Okay, I said you need to make
Okay, so I will not be on video other than what you see on the screen there for the whole room. For some reason, it's not showing my video tonight, but I am here. Tammy, we have 4 people, attendees, and we paused on the open session for public comment. Will you go ahead and take care of that?
Welcome to the meeting. This meeting is being broadcast live. The audio is being recorded and will be posted to the county website. As noted on our website, members of the public may watch the meeting or join online or by phone. During the open public comment session, speakers may not speak to items that are scheduled on the agenda for the public hearing tonight, which is capital facilities. If public is present in person, if you would like to, if you are participating remotely and would like to speak, virtually raise your hand and we will get to you shortly. If using the internet, press the hand icon to raise your hand. If calling by phone, press *9 to raise your hand.
The two that are on there are going to want to talk in the hearing.
So we have 2 hands raised, and I believe that they're for the hearing piece later, but if you have some general public comment not to do with the hearing, we can have you speak now. So if you are not, and you know how to lower your hand, go ahead and do that if you're not interested in it. Just open public comment, not related to the capital facilities plan. Okay, thank you. And we will come back to you later for public hearing. So.
Thank you. All right. So we're now having a public hearing and a work session. And Matt Ahmed, would you go ahead?
Thank you, Calvin. I'm going to bring up the screen here. Okay, can everybody see that? Okay.
It's coming
Yes, thank you.
All right, thanks. So for the record, my name is Matt Ahmed with Planning and Development Services. So this evening, we're talking about the capital facility planning, specifically the 6-year capital improvement program for county facilities from 2023 through 2028. So first, we want to look at a couple Growth Management Act or GMA provisions relating to capital facilities. So the GMA was adopted in 1990, and at that time there was rapid development in Western Washington. And as this was occurring, jurisdictions were sometimes having difficulty making infrastructure improvements necessary to serve the development. So one of the ideas in the GMA was that public facilities and services should keep pace with the development that was occurring, as reflected in Goal 12 from the GMA on the screen. So the idea is we shouldn't let infrastructure kind of continue to degrade below community standards as growth occurs. Rather, we should coordinate land use planning with capital facility planning through the 6-year CIP and other mechanisms. So the GMA states that comprehensive plans must have certain elements, and that these elements must be internally consistent. And one of the required elements is the capital facilities plan. So the GMA specifies what must be included in each of these elements. So for capital facilities, the plan must include an inventory of existing facilities, kind of a list of facilities, often including the acreage of land or the building square feet, a forecast of future needs, and this can be based upon level of service standards or other planning assumptions, trying to get a handle on facilities needed in the future. Proposed facilities like plans for parks, correction facilities, stormwater, etc. And this is to show how future community needs would be met, and a funding plan. So the GMA tried to instill a little bit of realism into the process by requiring a funding plan. Kind of in the distant past, CIPs were a long list of public projects that were kind of short on realistic funding. And part of this was because, to utilize some funding sources or to get a higher score in a grant, the project had to be listed in the comp plan. So there can be a tendency to include a project if the jurisdiction might do it or might try to get a grant. But kind of the intent of the GMA is to provide a more realistic funding plan, realizing that there are some uncertainties that go with funding future projects. And then the GMA also talks about having a policy to reassess the land use plan if funding falls short, and we have that in Chapter 4 of our comp plan. So the GMA requires a capital facility element, and in Whatcom County, this element has several components. The first is Chapter 4 of the comp plan, which sets kind of overall direction for capital facility planning. So this chapter contains goals and policies, but not specific projects or funding. Appendix E is the 20-year capital facility plan, and this plan looks at facilities needed to serve growth over a longer planning period. It includes generalized funding information. And Appendix F of the comp plan is a 6-year CIP for county projects, and this is updated every 2 years. So as the name implies, it provides near-term projects and funding sources to accomplish those projects. So the 6-year CIP addresses 9 categories of county facilities that are shown on the screen. So county departments submit proposed capital improvements to the county administration in the spring. So the administration reviews these projects and decides which ones will make it onto the 6-year CIP. And then Planning and Development Services coordinates and collates all this information into the CIP. So the projects you're seeing in this plan have been through the executive's office. And after review by the Planning Commission, we'll take the CIP to the County Council for review and any modifications, and they'll approve it with the county budget likely in November. So when County Planning Commission reviewed the 6-year CIP in 2020, you asked that we provide more information in the next update. So this time we provided a background information document highlighting the 10 capital projects that are over $5 million each. So the first 5 projects over $5 million are shown on the screen. So the other 5 projects over $5 million are on this slide. So these 10 projects account for almost 3/4 of the total CIP project costs. And there are descriptions of these projects in a background information document in your packet. So what are some of the main differences between the new CIP and the old CIP? So the last chapter of the CIP includes an accounting of costs for each capital improvement type and sums up these costs for a total. So on this slide, we're showing the overall cost from the last CIP and this CIP, so you can see them side by side and see the differences. We also asked our GIS specialist to map the proposed improvements in the 2023 through 28 CIP. I would note that for several projects, the location has not yet been determined, so they couldn't be mapped. This map shows the park, trail, and activity center projects. Here are the maintenance and operation improvements, and they're all centered around the central shop near Smith and Northwest. County government building improvement projects are shown here, and these projects are concentrated in Bellingham with the exception of the Northwest Annex campus construction. And finally, stormwater facilities and projects are shown on this map. And these facilities are concentrated in the Lake Whatcom watershed and Birch Bay area. So in summary, the GMA requires a capital facility element in local comp plans. The county comp plan calls for an update of the CIP every other year. The last comp plan update or comprehensive update of the CIP was in 2020. So it's due for another update in 2022, along with the county budget. So we're here tonight asking for Planning Commission recommendations prior to taking the CIP on to council for review and approval. And I would note that we have several county managers available tonight to answer questions from the county executive's office, from the Parks Department, and from Public Works. So that concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, we try to address those now with our other county managers.
Commissioners, any questions for Matt? Hanson arrived. Good, thanks. So, as I mentioned, Commissioner Hanson has come in. And Commissioner Hanson, Matt Ahmed just gave a presentation, and now it's time for Commissioner comments. Hard copy that I had on my computer. I have a couple questions. Okay. Commissioner questions before, and we can ask more of it. Clarification right now, and then the public are clarifying questions. Am I going with hand up? Commissioner Lund, go ahead.
I have a question about the parks list. The budget that's being proposed by staff has gone up a fair amount, and but it looks like some parks that were allocated before have rolled off, and I'm just wondering if there's anyone that can speak to the changes from the previously approved CIP to the one that we're considering tonight in terms of which parks are on and off the list. Specifically, what looked like was missing to me was the inner urban trail and some of the Chuckanut Mountain pieces.
Chris, could you handle that one?
Yes, I'm trying to start. Oh, I can't start my video. Chris Thompson, Park Operations Manager, Whatcom County Parks. So projects that are off, if you wouldn't mind letting me know which year you're talking about for the Interurban Trail and the Chuckanut Mountain Trails.
Yeah, sorry, Chris. I'm just pulling up the agenda online here. Let me download the packet. I left my packet behind here, so let's see. So it was, well, it's the previously approved, so it would have been what, the one that ended in 2023, but that we're operating in now. And then there's it's the in the commissioner's packet tonight, it's the in the parks section of the red redactions. That's the list that I was looking at that looks different than the list. That's what's being put forth for recommendation tonight.
Okay, I'm looking for that red redacted section. Give me just a moment. And the reason why I'm looking is during my time here, we haven't done work on the Interurban Trail. And so I just want to refresh my memory.
So that's Exhibit B, page F8.
Yeah. Exhibit B, F8.
Yeah, with all the red lines in it. So that's the last CIP that's being.
Yeah. I'm not seeing the interurban trail on there. So what I can say is that when we complete projects, they do fall off the list. We don't have, for the interurban trail in the coming 6 years, we don't have projects that we had planned for that system, as well as the Chuckanut Mountain Trail system. We don't have any larger scale projects planned for those facilities. That's not to say we're not doing small work there, doing trail reroutes, minor improvements, that sort of thing. But there are no projects planned for those properties.
And that wouldn't include the broken bridge over the Whatcom Creek area at the base of Arroyo Park.
Yeah, that is actually City Parks property, and they are working on that bridge.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Hanson has a question. Go ahead, Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, one question I have is about the South Fork Park Loop Trail improvements. And I've kind of lost track of that park, but in the past, there's been an issue about countywide citizen access to it because opposition from local valley residents to the development of that park, and it has been used primarily like a neighborhood park or community park with people of Acme, but not developed for countywide use. That was my experience in the past when the parks wanted to get something going there. What's the current status in that regard?
Again, Chris Thompson, Parks Operations Manager. I apologize. I had some difficulty hearing. I think what I heard was, what's the status of the park?
That's all.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's no
Commissioner
microphone
Hanson,
here, huh?
Go ahead. It's just got to be a little bit louder because it's picking up over by the wall.
In the past, there's been reluctance for the local community members for that to become a countywide park, and it's largely been utilized by local citizens and hasn't had parking and other amenities developed in accordance with the plan when the property was first acquired. So when I see money, $276,000 to improve trails, I would like to know what the status will be in terms of it being a countywide park.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have developed the trailhead. We put in a paved parking lot for hiking and mountain bike users, and a parking lot for equestrian users. We have a restroom facility on site now. In that initial development, we constructed a soft tread trail around the agricultural field. And the project that you referenced about the South Fork Park Loop Trail improvements actually changes that surfacing to a more durable surface that would provide an accessible trail route. In addition to that, if you look earlier up in the project list, I'm just looking for the project number. We do have a project to build the trail that connects from the South Fork Park Trailhead over to Nesset Farm. So we're continuing our development of those properties.
That's excellent, but they're not going to be, is it long range plans? Do you have picnicking, playgrounds, camping, or any other things other than just trail usage?
The primary purpose of the trail is trail usage, or the park is trail usage. And then over on the Nesset Farm, we have historic properties that we plan on doing interpretation. Current zoning actually doesn't provide for picnicking and playgrounds and those sorts of things at South Fork Park.
One other thing is, have you developed driven access to the Nesset Farm, which I understand would have been blocked off by local landowners?
I didn't hear the first part of that statement.
Have you developed a right of way for people to drive to the Nesset Farm now, or is it only going to be accessed by county staff or by trail for citizens?
Okay. So currently, access to the Nesset farm off of, Saxon Road is for county staff and contractors, that sort only. We're looking at two ways of providing that access. One is trail construction from South Fork. And then we're always looking at other opportunities for securing access, i.e. acquisitions, where we can provide that public access from the southern portion of the park.
Thank you.
Commissioner Desmani, go ahead.
So, yeah, the primary reason I'm asking this question because Tyler Schroeder, the deputy county executive, decided to attend the meeting, and I don't want to feel like he wasted his time. So, these questions have to do with corrections facilities. I've got a couple of the questions. The first question is, because this is a very active topic of conversation, including at the county level with the stakeholder advisory committee and so on and so forth. Is it premature to put numbers in this capital improvement plan while we're waiting for the output of that, which will be towards the end of the year? And that's the first question.
Yeah, this is Tyler Schroeder, Deputy Executive at Tool. I thank you for calling on me just because I attended tonight. I think the estimates in this capital improvement plan is just that, project level estimates. In the plan for 23 through 28, it's indicating a total of $120 million for a new correctional facility. The last effort was about $110 million all in, both hard construction and soft construction. So I would say it's appropriate to have an estimated amount, but it's just a planning level amount. It is not a construction estimate or engineer's estimate.
So in regards to that, because it's an estimate, I think in today's earlier meeting, a SAC meeting, one of the things you pointed out was how variable these numbers are. And I'm wondering, if you look at the capital improvement plan, there are some numbers with very low variability, meaning that actual quotes probably backing those numbers or lots of prior experience. And in this case, there's a lot of variability. How do you deal with that kind of variability in the capital improvement plan as far as your budget estimates? Because none of them have a plus or minus on them. So how do you deal with that?
I might leave that question to Matt from a planning level kind of GMA capital improvement plan.
Yeah, so if you look on Exhibit A, page F4, and we'd had kind of discussions with this type of thing with finance over the years. And basically, it talks about in that paragraph under charter provisions, county budget, appropriations for 2023, 24, may be included in the biennial budget or adopted through the supplemental budget. But then it goes on to say costs identified through 2025 through 28 are included for planning purposes only and review of potential needs, not for budget authorization at this time. So they are planning level estimates, and we update the CIP every 2 years. So there's an opportunity to refine it relatively often. The GMA does call for us looking at, projects and projected costs and things like that. So it's kind of I think a best guess that the administration made. It may change, when we get down to the budget process or supplemental budget process, then that'll be refined. This, I think Tyler alluded to.
And then if I may, Chair, one last follow-up.
Sure, go ahead.
Last follow-up is, I think I asked the question last time we reviewed this in 2020 is, I think what the other commissioners raised as far as specific questions about specific projects is a good example of the kind of things that the Planning Commission can do in reviewing this kind of budget. But I continue to wonder how I can add value to this process as a planning commissioner, because I'm not the expert on facilities and what facilities cost. And I'm wondering input from staff, and since Tyler, you're on, what value can we add to this process from your perspective in reviewing this capital improvement plan?
I think part of the role of the planning commission is, to hear public comments too, and try to evaluate, what folks in the community might have to say. I think you're right. This is more of a technical, type document that the department's put together, goes through the county executive's office. So I hear what you're saying. It's not like, policy language, comp plan or zoning code. But I think that is one thing you can do is listen to public comments and see if you want to make any recommendations around those.
Well, I guess the main, then I'll complete with this comment to the, then, and that's that I don't know exactly what to say about this budgeted amount for the, for a new jail. But I know it's a hugely and richly discussed subject right now, and will be for the next several months. And in a couple of forums, most importantly, the IPRTF and the Stakeholder Advisory Committee meeting, and just recognize, in fact, there's a lot of variability in what that number could look like. And I'm not sure what that means for the capital improvement plan, but just somehow or another, if there's a way of capturing the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty and variability in that number, that would be, if we could do that, that would be a good thing.
Any more clarifying questions for staff? Commissioner Hanson.
I seem to recall that the last time this came up, to help deal with the uncertainty about public safety infrastructure investments, that we changed the name of it from detention facility to public safety facilities that would provide the latitude to have a smaller jail and some other facilities to provide services to reduce the level of crime. And I guess I'm not at the place to offer that as an amendment, but I would right now, but I wonder about your perspective on that.
Tyler, I'm going to let you handle that one.
Yeah, I was interested in looking at the last redlined version that we're working off of to see what it was in the last version. Because I do remember some back and forth in regards to the title and to the location. And I don't remember if it was planning commission or if it was council, but that has been changed over the years. So Commissioner Hanson, I think you're correct. It did indicate public health, safety, and justice facilities in the last version. And I think making that change for this version is completely appropriate.
Do we need a motion or?
A motion on changing that would not be appropriate at this time. We're asking clarifying question at the start, and then I'm not sure if that goes with the capital, the 6-year capital improvement plan. But it is a good topic. But Commissioner Lund, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a general question about some of the facilities capital improvements that are highlighted, specifically like the Northwest Annex work and the Gerard Street health facility. And both of those in the later in our packet talk about in the benefit for this work, talk about upgrades to the HVAC systems and installing new energy efficient lighting. And I'm just wondering if there's been any general thoughts about alternative energy on site. So whether that would be solar on these facilities, EV charging stations, if we're going to be a state where you can't buy a fossil fuel car by 2035. Are we starting to look ahead now to take advantage of some of the alternative energy needs that are being kind of nudged by policy at a state and federal level? And are we prepared to act if we're able to get cost reductions to implement those solutions?
Yeah, Tyler Schroeder, Deputy Executive, a good question. The answer is yes. We are looking at those opportunities that are in front of us as we are designing and building new capital facilities. It's one of the opportunities that we see in the importance of constructing new facilities like the Northwest Annex. It really gives us an opportunity to redesign the site and the energy efficiency surrounding it. Most, if not all, of those larger projects also are required to meet LEED certification. And through that LEED process, we go through and determine whether it be electric vehicle charging stations or different energy sources, and kind of make those decisions to accomplish that LEED certification. A good example is the Civic Center building, which is downtown, where the Public Works is currently at. We did a building remodel for that facility and have recently put in electric vehicle charging in the basement to accomplish some of those standards.
Thanks, Tyler.
Yep.
Commissioner Desmani, go ahead.
I was just along those lines wondering if there's a way to look at this chart as it relates to climate-related investments in the capital improvement plan. Is that something that's been looked at, or is there? I'm just curious about that as a question. Both reducing, both mitigation and adaptation.
Commissioner Desmani, was that a question or a comment?
Question for, I think probably for Deputy Schroeder.
Tyler, yes. Tyler.
Yeah, I don't think in general, Atul, this list has been considered to that question. But I would think that some of the specific projects that are on it on a project by project basis have been considered.
Okay, are there any other clarifying questions? Commissioner Hanson.
Oh, I'm asking this as a citizen and taxpayer, and I've been around long enough. I remember when the courthouse building used to be mustard colored, and a lot of time and money and disruption went into rebuilding it with a whole new exterior. Now, just out of curiosity, why is it now going to take another 14 million to fix the exterior?
Yeah, so Tyler Schroeder again. About 5 to 6 years ago, there was an analysis about the courthouse exterior and the construction techniques that happened when the large remodel happened in the mid 90s, I believe, early 90s. In that plan, it established a phase approach. And there was a lot of discussion about whether or not it should be, I don't know the word, encapsulated in a glass cover, or if there was ways to actually go through and do some maintenance to the ephes and to the different joints to ensure that water doesn't get into the courthouse because of the way it was originally constructed. So there has been, and I think everybody would probably remember a few years ago when there was exterior work to the courthouse, and there was large scaffolding around the one side and the back side. So that was to make sure that water didn't penetrate inside to those construction joints. And now the next couple of phases, as outlined in the capital facilities plan, is to do roof projects. I think there are 22 or maybe 24 different roof structures on top of the courthouse. And so we're going through and redoing those roofs to ensure that it can stick around for the next 50 to 100 years. Unfortunately, maintenance of your house or maintenance of your buildings are expensive these days, and that's what that $14 million is showing, is the need to do continued cost maintenance that we probably hadn't done the last 20 years, but that we need to do moving forward.
Are there any other clarifying questions for staff? Okay, so it's time for a public hearing. open the public hearing. We have some attendees. We have an attendee here in person that I believe would like to speak. And so Tammy and Becky will be taking care of our public hearing. So go ahead.
I remind you that this meeting is being broadcast live. The audio is being recorded and will be posted to the county website. If you would like to provide public comment in person on this topic, we will take comments from those in the room first. Please come up to the podium and print your full name on the sign-up sheet. If you are participating remotely and would like to speak, raise your hand and we will get to you shortly.
Gee, I was just gonna come and watch what's going on. But if you want me to speak, I should. Do I speak into this? No?
No, you can just write at the podium there. You can just.
Right here.
There and,
Okay.
yeah, if you would put your name on the paper and then speak your full name for the record.
Okay. Patrick Allisey. Birch Bay. And I think planning is so important.
Pat, can you speak up just a little bit?
Yes, I can speak up. Is this loud enough? Okay, good. Planning is really extremely important. And in fact, today, there's a seminar going online that talks about planning for rural areas. It's saying, you know what? Our cost of food is going to go up because we're not really planning rural areas for farming. People are moving out there and it's cost more to service them. In fact, even here in Bellingham and Washington County, if you sit down and you look at what it costs per person to service people in Bellingham that has really good fire protection, really good medical protection, roads that get you around, and rural Washington County, it costs more per capita in rural Whatcom County. That isn't what people believe, but that's what happens. And it happens because we're not really planning as well as we should. We sort of like, oh, those people need help out there. We gotta help them. And it winds up costing everybody more in the long run. So good luck with all this. Do you want anything else? I could give you more advice.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Pat.
Speakers may be called on by name or based on the last three digits of their phone number if they're calling in. When called on, press the microphone symbol to unmute yourself. If you joined by phone, press *6. Please state your full name for the record and direct all comments to the chair. Each speaker has 3 minutes to speak. Staff may also announce time is up, or mute your microphone. Dorley.
My name is Doralee Booth. Greetings from Birch Bay. I have been a Birch Bay Chamber Director for 7 years and serve as County Liaison. Birch Bay is a designated urban growth area and, if incorporated, would be the 4th largest city in Whatcom County with over 10,000 residents. Our economy is based on tourism and our population more than doubles in the summer months. I served as vice chair of the Birch Bay Steering Committee that worked with Whatcom County to draft the Birch Bay Community Comprehensive Plan, which was adopted by Whatcom County in 2004. Birch Bay committees were formed to partner with Whatcom County to implement the goals and policies of the comp plan. One of those goals was to purchase park property on Birch Bay Drive, a 4-acre property with 9 acres of tide flats and 400 feet of shoreline became available along the drive. A beach park committee was formed, and in 2014, the property was purchased with conservation future funds for $2.4 million. The Birch Bay Community Park Master Plan was completed with public input and adopted in 2017. Phase 1 improvement includes bathrooms and parking, estimated to cost $3,532,000. Frontage improvements were made this summer. Other than that, no improvements have occurred. Since 2014, the park has basically been used as a dog park. Construction of bathrooms is an urgent need. There are no public restrooms along Birch Bay Drive in the Central Resort area where thousands of people visit to enjoy the shoreline. Porta potties cleaned once a week have been provided by the chamber. With the recent construction of the 1.6-mile berm and pedestrian trail, people are recreating year-round and searching for appropriate bathroom facilities. Looking back at the previous 6-year CIP, a total of over $4 million during the 6 years was proposed for the community park, which would have funded phase 1. Those funds have disappeared in the new CIP with only $200,000 proposed in 2028. Why is the community park capital improvement no longer a priority on the CIP? We are working to find other funding sources. The Birch Bay Community Park received a $1 million RCO grant for development. We have spoken with the Whatcom County Lodging Tax Committee and executives to do, who all agree that the need for restrooms is urgent. Lodging tax capital funds are a funding source for our tourism needs. Plain Birch Bay Park,
Please,
pardon?
30 seconds, please.
Birch Bay Park and Recreation District is a partner and has done maintenance and set aside $100,000 grant. Please be aware of this essential facility for tourists, visitors, and Whatcom County residents who come to enjoy the shores of Birch Bay. Please make funding for phase 1 development of the Birch Bay Beach Park a priority. Thank you.
Danielle? Danielle, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. My name's Danielle Gahn, and I'm the Executive Director at the Birch Bay Chamber. As Dorley noted, the need for public bathrooms in Birch Bay, ones that flush, are urgently needed. We don't currently have any public bathrooms to accommodate the need of our many tourists, visitors, and members of our community who recreate along the central shoreline here in Birch Bay. And for the past 7 years, the Birch Bay Chamber of Commerce has utilized funds that we receive from Whatcom County Lodging Tax for our operations to manage a fleet of seasonal porta potties. This year we had 6 along Birch Bay Drive. And since 2016, the Birch Bay Chamber has spent nearly $30,000 on portable toilets. It's important to note that it's getting increasingly difficult to find portable toilets. SSC no longer has them, and other companies in Whatcom County are understocked and understaffed. We receive an enormous amount of feedback, mostly negative, from visitors, tourists, community members, etc., about the lack of permanent public restrooms in Birch Bay. We often get feedback about how gross the porta potties are, even though they are cleaned and serviced at least weekly and oftentimes more during the busy weekends. As you probably know, Birch Bay is a really popular 4th of July destination. One reason is because personal fireworks are permitted here. Each year on this holiday weekend, we welcome thousands of additional tourists, most of whom are recreating on our shores. This past year, we heard reports that the lines for the portable toilets were over 40 to 50 people long for hours on end on the 4th of July alone. Even though the chamber spent an additional $1,500 on porta potties for that weekend, it wasn't enough. Just to let you know, 50 people fill a porta potty. It's a fact I wish I didn't know. In reviewing the 6-year capital improvement program for parks, trails, activity center projects, we didn't see any funds allocated for the development of the beach park until 2028. The longer that this project is put on hold, the costs associated with it will continue to grow. Recently, the Chamber has been working to collaborate and highlight this urgent need with Whatcom County Lodging Tax Committee, Bellingham Whatcom County Tourism, Whatcom County Parks and Recreation, and Blaine Birch Bay Parks and Recreation District 2. We are requesting that the Planning Commission recognize this urgent need and prioritize funding the first phase of development of the Birch Bay Beach Park, which includes bathrooms, as soon as possible to provide the facilities that we urgently need. Our community cannot wait until 2028. Thank you for your time.
We have 3 attendees. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? The public wishes to speak? And same person. Yes, Danielle, is that a second? You're on our list up here twice.
I should just be on there or on there once.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, you bet. Seeing that there are no other people that wish to speak, I'm going to close the public hearing.
I know I already spoke, but seeing somebody brought up the idea of bathrooms, I'm flush with answers for you. If you want to hear me, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine.
I'm going to give you a little grace there, Pat. Go ahead.
Do I get up again?
Speak loud enough.
Okay, I'll speak loud enough. Way back when, in the 60s and early 70s, there were 8 bathrooms along Birch Bay Drive that were handled by the various resorts. Oh yes, they were all flush, but they went into septic systems. So I'm not calling the ones at the state park, just along Birch Bay Drive. And I can instantly count them for you right now if you want, but I won't bother. What happened was when we got our sewer district, then when you hook up the sewer, you have to pay for your capacity. Where does that come from? Oh, how many bathrooms do you have in your resort? Well, I got 6. Can you get by with 2? Oh, yeah. So then they could get onto the sewer cheaper. So many of the resorts dropped their bathrooms for people who were just coming and visiting. So that happened over the years. Oh, we do have one that's hooked to the sewer. It's sort of run by a condominium that's supposed to take care of it, but they weren't taking care of it this year because they didn't have anybody there to take care of it. Who took care of it? So I opened and closed the bathroom every day, cleaned it out. It was an interesting experience. I've met a lot of really interesting people there. Yeah, we need to have a bathroom. Why not just take one of these? And I've said this years ago. There's bathrooms that are actually pre-constructed that can be just put on top of a sewer, and they can supply water and sewer, and you can use them for a few years and then move them again and redo them. So I'll throw that at you. Okay, I'll be quiet.
That's right. Thank you. So I am going to close the public hearing.
Hi, I don't know if are you able to hear me. I raised my hand in here. I'm not sure if it's working right.
Oh, go ahead. Can we expand that? Click on our attendees.
Oh, yeah, you're showing up as Danielle. Sorry
You're
about
showing up as someone else. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
I apologize. She must have when she sent me the link. So my name is Derek Jones. I'm the Birch Bay neighborhood deputy for the Whatcom County Sheriff's Office. I'm also serving right now as the Birch Bay Chamber of Commerce president. And I was hoping just to kind of come from a law enforcement side on this as well. I can't, I won't do justice to what Dora Lee and Danielle did. They were both very eloquent with what they said, and it's very important for these bathroom positions. But I also wanted to point out that as a sheriff's deputy, with the increase in public that we've had on the berm and especially on the 4th of July, that we have had increases on urinating in public and different things that cause disturbances that I think would be remedied by a bathroom. And I wanted to make sure that the importance that I believe is needed is there as well. So I thank you for your time, and I appreciate your guys' planning.
Thank you. Okay, the meeting is closed. Commissioners, discussion, question, more questions for staff? Nobody else? Commissioner Jackson.
Just a question for staff. What do we got to do to get these folks a bathroom?
Chris, can you take that one?
I sure can. Tyler might want to step up in here as well. It's a matter of funding and priorities and working with the community to find solutions. We've started some of those conversations and we're going to continue. And internally, we are looking at fund sources and looking for opportunities. That's kind of a soft answer, so I don't know if Tyler wants to add anything.
Yeah, no, Chris, that's accurate. I mean, I actually participated in the acquisition when I was first in the executive's office of the Voight property, of the Birch Bay Park property. We see it as a jewel and look forward to it being developed. When it was originally acquired, there was a discussion with the community about how best to find funds and what type of county funds as well as community funds we could put together for the acquisition of it and for the operation of it as well, right? Building is one thing, operating it is something totally different as well. So having a good sense of what that total cost is and that community dialogue. Chris and I have talked a lot about it for the last couple of months, just the situation in Birch Bay. We're looking forward to Bennett Knox, our new Parks Department director, to come in, and I believe he's having some conversations out in Birch Bay on the topic. There are other projects that are funded in a higher priority right now. The Silver Lake project, which we've continued to invest in. I think I saw the Lake Wacom Trailhead development projects, and there is one other larger project kind of prior to that 2028 deadline. I think it's a great opportunity to hear from Danielle and from Doralee. I think it's a good conversation for a recommendation from the Planning Commission, if you so see, so that there can be more dialogue at the council when the CIP gets to them about funding opportunities and how to move forward with a project out there.
Just to follow up, and this might be a question for Matt. Having gone through this a couple of times, it's my memory that this is there's not a lot that we can do as far as adding things to the capital improvement plan. Is that correct? We wouldn't be able to add funding here. This would have to be something that's docketed with the council and then funding approved.
Well, I mean, this 6-year CIP is part of the comp plan, so it's something within the purview of the Planning Commission. You can make recommendations. One thing the executive's office, I think, tries to do is match the project expenditures, 6-year costs with funding sources. And that's kind of where the rub comes in. You could recommend, adding bathroom or adding it sooner. But then the question becomes, is there realistic funding for that? And that would get back to Tyler and Chris and what funding sources the county has to do something like that. And does something else need to be bumped off the list to do that, or that type of discussion?
And then I will stop. I will relinquish the podium in a moment, but just hearing that the bathroom is 40 to 50 people deep and for the line, and it's with porta potties, to me that's something that's just unsustainable for the community, and waiting until 2028 is not something that we should be doing. So I would be in support of making a recommendation that get at the very least prioritized in the coming CIP.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question. Since it originally was on in the original CIP or the previous one under 2021 and 2022, what was the reason that no action was taken on it? Now it sounds like, okay, we're trying to find a place to put it in, but it was already in. So I'm wondering why nothing moved forward with it.
Chris, do you know that answer? I saw the last version had anticipated $500,000 in 21 and 22. So it wasn't the whole phase of the restroom and parking lot construction. It was a smaller item. So Chris, do you know?
Yes, actually that 21, 22 was some of the improvements that we're working on right now, such as the frontage fence line, excuse me, and some other work that we are working to get done right now at Birch Bay. So it was not the restroom.
And then just an additional piece of information to Stephen Jackson's and Matt's question. Currently, it is identified as funding sources from REIT, the real estate excise tax, the park special revenue fund, and donations. So it's anticipated that that would be the funding sources. And I think the community dialogue about whether or not we can move that forward at a quicker pace is an appropriate conversation to be had.
Thank you, Tyler.
Commissioner Lund.
I'm wondering if Commissioner Jackson wants to make a motion that it be included in this year's draft CIP for consideration.
Yes, I will. Let me work on the wording of that. Give me a moment.
While he's working on that, I have a question for Chris Thompson. The question is, we know that we're fairly certain there were some side sewer lines or sewer lines going into the property there. Are you familiar with them and the shape they're in?
We're not familiar with sewer lines in the area. We're not familiar with the underground condition of those at this time. We just know that they exist and there's an opportunity for connection.
Sure, and the reason why is many of you know, I worked for local government for a whole career, 34 years, and one of the projects I was on is we had a part of the city where we didn't have restrooms for employees when they're out working in that area. And I know this is a few years back, I know they don't cost the same, but what we seriously looked at were the ones that it's a total concrete building, it's got a center that is your hookup, and you have restrooms at each side of it, and so you need a sewer connection and a water connection, and you set the bathroom right on the top of that. It comes down the center and you hook it up, and they're fairly inexpensive. And as I say, I don't know the cost of them today. I know when I retired, they were about $30,000 a piece. So you needed a water hookup, a sewer line, and site prep, but it wasn't significant site prep. But the beauty of it, as someone else mentioned, when the park changes, you can pick them up and move them to a different part of the park. They come in on a flatbed truck and you lift them off with a crane. And so I'm putting that out there as Commissioner Jackson is working in a motion that it's something that's relatively inexpensive.
You don't remember? Do you recall what the manufacturer was?
I don't recall who it was, but they're manufactured in Spokane.
Thank you.
Right. Click on. I am not sure which Danielle it is, but I am going to call on you. Go ahead.
Thanks. Regarding those bathrooms you were talking about, I've reached out to the company in Spokane that makes them. They don't have one that is the 6-stall bathroom style that was in the first plan of the park. However, the guy that I talked to there the other day is working on modifying one of their designs to match the design that was for the park as far as spacing goes, and the ability to lock those bathrooms as the tourism season gets busier. I haven't gotten that quote from him yet, but I will forward it on to anyone who's interested as soon as I have that.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson, are you ready for us?
No, give me like 5 minutes, please. We can, I'll raise my, is that okay if I raise my hand and we can come back to that? Is that okay?
Do you want to talk about another amendment or what do you get that one together?
We certainly can.
Okay,
Commissioner Hanson.
Okay, I would propose that we change the name of the allocation for adult corrections facility back to health, or back to public health, safety and justice facilities. Public health, safety and justice facilities, as it was previously named.
Second.
So or just for a point of order, is that going to cause an issue if we change that in this document?
Not with me. I mean, you're the planning commission, you can make recommendations. That's what it was called last time. Tyler, do you have any issues with that?
Fully support that change.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, is there any discussion? Commissioner Despani, did you have any more comments on that? Because your hand is still up.
No, sir, I'll put it down.
Okay. Are there any more comments on this? Becky, would you call the roll, please?
Jackson,
Yes.
Jefferson,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Mosseri,
Yes.
Van Dalen,
Yes.
Barton,
Yes.
Bartel,
Yes.
Yashmani,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Passes 9-0.
Commissioner Masseri?
Yeah, on the last CIP, part of that discussion, we also, I think, changed the funding source to investigate alternative funding sources outside of debt and sales tax. And then I see that the funding sources are debt and sales tax. I was just curious if any investigation had been done and nothing else came up, or if there was anything looked into on that.
Tyler, can you address that?
Yeah, I can try to address that. I see there in the last version, investigate alternative funding sources outside of debt sales tax. What does this version say? I'm sorry, I got to catch up.
I believe it has 1 and 2, which are debt and new sales tax.
Yeah, I mean, if the question is do we have any concern with adding that language back in? We don't. I don't think a decision has really been made from the community or from the advisory committee and the council on what the funding sources would be. We have had many conversations about all different funding sources. And so we are kind of currently looking into that as we speak.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Hanson?
This is something that's more for the good of the order, but I just wanted to note, if you hadn't noted that Tuesday night, the council passed the Whatcom County overlay and critical area overlay that we worked so hard on, and a 9-0 vote with little comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson?
So I'll just move to add prioritize, and if somebody wants to massage the language here, happy to hear suggestions. Prioritizing funding for restroom facilities at the Birch Bay Beach Park. Is that?
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Masseri?
Where would that language go?
Dig up my agenda. 1 second. I would think it would need to go in parks, which I believe is chapter 2, and perhaps under the proposed improvement projects, which would be page F as in Frank 6.
And then I am going to ask Matt, is there another place that should also go, Matt? Or
Well, I guess my question would be, all right, like on page F9, there's the Beach Bay Park Development Project, which has a $200,000 in 2028. Are you proposing to change that for this CIP? Or are you just kind of making a statement for the future, CIPs, prioritize this project? So I guess that clarification.
Well, I think that waiting 5 years, 6 years is untenable. These folks are paying for portable restroom facilities that I don't know how long they can do that. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that they're continuing to do that. So, perhaps we can move that number up, and perhaps we can also increase that number.
So Tyler or Chris, could you comment on that just from the county administration perspective?
I can try to weigh in there unless Chris, you're going to start.
No, go ahead and start.
I think that the value of input from the Planning Commission would be for council consideration of this question before they adopt this CIP. And, if there's a recommendation for moving the priority of number 28, the Birch Bay Beach Park development, to a sooner year, likely that would be a 2-year project where you would do design, engineering, and understanding, and then construction likely in the 2nd year. I don't have a perspective for the group today on what year that should be. It would take us a little bit more to really think through a pretty complex park development project as this. But hearing that input from the Planning Commission, allowing park staff and our office to consider it a little bit more, and then engaging council with it, I think is totally appropriate. I'm not sure if that answered the question, but that's my thought.
So one idea, we have the findings document and recommendations. Good, under page 5, where it says recommendations, You could put, planning commission recommends that the county council consider, moving up this project or whatever the wording was that you had, prioritizing the project. And that would go on to council so they could, when they deliberate on this, they could consider that recommendation and maybe moving up the funding and increasing the funding.
So there would be a third recommendation there on page 5 now.
Yeah, that would be my thought. If you're not going to put specific numbers in or, move something around.
Are we allowed to try to move something around?
Well, like I mentioned, this is a comprehensive plan amendment. So you can, but it gets back to, is that a realistic funding source? And does it something else have to be bumped in priority? So that's the only concern there. You can do it. But will there be realistic funding backing it is a whole nother question that the administration should probably review.
And I'm sorry, and I know that Commissioner Jackson would like to speak, and I know Commissioner Hanson would, and I just want to continue this. So could we take Commissioner Jackson's motion and put it in here and recommend a dollar amount under the recommendation in finding?
You could, or you could, because it may take some the administration working with Parks Department to determine a good number for that. I mean, if you have a basis for a good number, you certainly could, but if you don't, it might be better just to let them come up with a number.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson, go ahead.
So not to belabor this, but I frankly don't think it's appropriate for us to mess with funding. And I think that the purpose, and I could be, way off base, but I think that the purpose would be to, as I think Tyler mentioned, is just make logical and reasoned recommendations to council. And so I think the original motion placed in that original spot that I had mentioned after Commissioner Mosseri asked about that is what would be appropriate here.
Commissioner Hanson. Well, I have little wisdom about where exactly to put it, but I totally agree we should make a statement and give staff an opportunity to provide a realistic estimate of what the cost might be, and our statement that we believe it should be prioritized and moved up and better funded to the extent that it needs funding. I think that somehow we should go forward and make that. And I don't think we should be discouraged by thoughts of lack of funding, because we're talking about spending over $100 million on a jail that the taxpayers have turned down the tax increase twice. And that's still on there. And it seems like this is going to be an easier sell than that is. And I'd like to see, personally, I'd like to see the public safety, health, justice facilities be improved. But so I'm basically, that's a long way of saying something short is, yeah, I agree that we should put something in there and give staff and council a chance to fill in the blanks. Any other questions on it? Commissioner Mosseri.
Well, before we vote, I just want to confirm that we're not putting it in the recommendations, and it's coming somewhere in the actual document, which I heard F6, I think. So I just want to know where we're putting it before I vote on it.
I think that, and I'm happy to have other folks weigh in on this, but I think F6 under proposed improvement projects, or I guess the alternative would be F8.
Yeah.
Under proposed improvement projects, so that you can then reference table 4. Table 4.
Is everyone okay with it going on F8 under proposed improvement project?
So just a F6 is park improve. So this whole chapter is split into parks, trails, and activity centers. So F6 would be the appropriate location. F8 relates to activity center projects.
Okay, good, thank you. And so we're okay with leaving it under F6?
And so I've got as the wording, prioritize funding for restroom facilities at the Birch Bay Beach Park. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, on page F6.
Are there any more questions or comments? Becky, would you call the roll, please?
Jefferson,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Lossary,
Yes.
Van Dalen,
Yes.
Bartel,
Yes.
Deshmani,
Yes,
I'm sorry? Yes,
yes,
Hanson,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
passes 9-0.
If I could, Chair,
Go ahead.
I just want to compliment the planning commission, and we'll make sure to kind of continue this conversation as it goes to council, and I'll chat a little bit more with Parks Department staff about funding and prioritization.
Commissioners, any other areas here in the picture capital improvement plan? Commissioner Lund?
Well, if we don't have any more items to discuss, I would make a motion, but I just want to make sure I'm not jumping the gun.
I am not seeing any hands come up, and we have 4 commissioners here, 5 commissioners, and no one appears to be expressing interest in making additional changes.
Well, then I would make a motion that we approve Exhibit A, the 6-year capital improvement plan for years 23 through 28 as amended, and that we repeal Exhibit B, the CIP for years 21 through 26.
Did you want to add the findings to that too?
Oh, and accept the findings of fact.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve. I won't be able to say it all the way, said it, Commissioner Lund, but to approve the 6-year CIP as amended, along with the deletions and the finding of fact. Are there any comments? Discussion? Seeing no comments or discussion. Becky, would you call the roll, please?
Lund,
Yes.
Lossary,
Yes.
Van Dalen,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Bartel,
Yes.
Deshmani,
yes,
Hanson,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Jefferson,
Yes.
passes 9-0.
We are at the end of our work session. Is there any other topics the commissioners would like to bring up? Commissioner Bartel.
Just before we move on from this, I'd like to thank staff for providing the extra background information. I appreciate it reading it, and if they can in the future, I wouldn't mind seeing it in there again. So, again, thank you.
Thank you, staff.
Good job.
Will do.
I would second that.
Yeah, definitely. Good job.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I am not seeing any hands up, and so nobody is looking like they want to speak except me. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
So now I